Hello guys, happy to see you again. In this video, we will listen to the storyline of a film titled Doors. This film tells the story of the appearance of aliens who open portals to other dimensions and suck humans and change their behavior when they come back. Curious about the full line? But don't forget, before we check the full storyline, hit the like, subscribe Professor Yellow recap and bell buttons to get notifications when a new video is released. At the beginning of the film, a half-naked man was seen walking into the forest. Several strange reports came into the emergency line, including a woman whose husband suddenly walked into the woods, people who felt trapped in their own rooms and people who saw several people standing still in front of doors. Meanwhile, a group of students were taking exams in a classroom when suddenly a flash of shadow was seen flashing over their roof. The teacher got an emergency call and leaves them in the classroom, locking the students' phones in a cabinet. Felt something was strange, and after hearing an announcement from the office that every class would be locked and they were not allowed to go out, the students tried to turn on the radio to hear the news of what was going on. From the radio they learned that something strange has landed on Earth and the military forces are working on it. When they heard gunshots from the radio broadcast, they immediately turned it off. Suddenly something banged on their class window and a bloodstain was left behind. They also decided to take their cell phones by breaking into the cabinet. At the sight of the lights going off and on, they argue about whether they should stay or got out of class. Finally, they all came out of the classroom and found the campus hallway, which was already chaotic and messy. They found a furry creature clinging to the wall and sucking up what they threw. One of the students named Ash tried to approach it and was almost sucked in, but luckily he was saved by his friend. Apparently these creatures were aliens who bring anything including humans to the other dimension. After the incident, an argument broke out among the students and Ash accidentally pushed her friends into the alien portal. Feeling guilty, she finally entered the portal, leaving one of her friends alone in the hallway. Then there was the appearance of a very quiet city where many people disappeared and did not return. Scientists finally named this alien as Doors. Although many people disappeared due to being sucked in by the portal, it turned out that some of them were able to return. Seeing this, the government finally decided to conduct a trial by sending volunteers into the doors called Project Knockers. One day 3 volunteers called Knockers would enter the doors. They are Patty, Beck, and Vince. Inside a house they found quite large doors and they went inside. They only had 12 minutes inside the doors and had to go back in time to avoid psychological disturbances. When they entered the doors they found a room with 3 different doors. They decided to split up to get more documentation. Patty entered the pink door, where next he found a room full of roses and a girl named Rose. Meanwhile Beck entered the silver door and she found a white kitchen. In the kitchen she found a cradle that moved on its own and several baby bottles. It wasn't long before someone appeared behind the other door. Vince also entered a beige door, where he found several 80s style rooms. Each room has marble statues with different expressions and also clocks set at different times. Then the scene shows Beck's situation in the room. A man walked in and spoke to her like he knew her. The person asked if the baby was okay and it made Beck hold her stomach. Apparently the figure was also the incarnation of alien Doors. Then, Beck went into a hallucination where she was with her boyfriend Vince and he was holding a toy gun. Vince himself was in another room and he immediately rushed out when time was running out, but suddenly various figures appeared under the blanket on the bed of the room. When there were only 5 minutes left, the girl who looked like Patty's girlfriend had a seizure and then Patty helped her. Patty then tried to leave the room, but the girl said would Patty leave her again. After that suddenly Patty's helmet was somehow covered in flower petals and he ended up falling on the side of the bed. Beck was still with Vince in a room and her stomach suddenly grew like she was pregnant. Vince kept reassuring her that it's real, but then a warning alerted her if there's only 3 minutes left. Beck, who was holding a toy gun, realizes it was just a hallucination and she immediately shoots a phased gun at the head of the alien incarnation. Then Vince, who was trying to get out of the room, entered another room. The room turned out to be a copy of Vince and Beck's apartment. There Vince met 2 alien incarnations that resembled him. The 2 aliens tried to confuse Vince and changed his uniform into ordinary clothes. Vince called Beck into the room and asked for help. Beck also came, and she was confused about choosing the real Vince. Beck shooted one of the aliens that resembled Vince, but when she was about to choose one of the 2 identical Vince, Beck mistakenly shooted the real Vince. After that incident, a radio broadcast was heard saying that Project Knockers had been unsuccessful after being done for weeks. Almost all of the knockers didn't make it back and half the world's human population had already disappeared. A man seems to be starting the day in the morning while listening to the radio, urging residents to immediately report to local authorities if they see doors appearing. The man immediately turned off the radio and left the house. Carrying a rope, this man named Jamal Atkins, who was a scientist, went into the middle of the forest where it turns out that he has a set of tools for broadcasting. A doors was also in front of his equipment and was recorded by a camera. Jamal tried to find the frequency at which the sound can be heard and recorded on camera. Soon Jamal managed to find the right frequency, and finally he was able to ask questions and record alien doors' voices. When asked about some of these things, the alien did not answer specifically, but it said that they had come to Earth to observe the living things that were there. After successfully communicating with doors, Jamal then told his fellow scientist Kathy to come over. Kathy also came with her boyfriend, Leo. Jamal told them both that he had a door and managed to communicate with the alien. The three of them finally went to the middle of the forest to see and prove Jamal's words. Kathy was surprised and happy to see that the doors found by Jamal can communicate. On the other hand, Leo felt panic, and because he didn't like it, Leo secretly called someone. Knowing the doors could communicate, Kathy asked what they came to Earth for. Doors, who call themselves Lamage, said if they came to study humans and they would archive humanity. Kathy was very excited because she thought that she could study the entire universe through Lamage, considering that she was currently just an ordinary astronomy teacher. But while studying the doors, suddenly a policeman named Ricky, who was a friend of Leo's, came. Leo, who didn't like Jamal and doors, secretly asked his police friend to come over. The cop asked Kathy not to get too close to the doors, but Kathy panicked and the cop felt the same. He told Jamal to get down on his knees and tried to call the other police for backup. When they were panicking, suddenly Kathy hit the policeman from behind. The cop, who was seriously injured and holding a gun, shot Leo by accident. He also pointed a gun at Jamal, but before he shot Jamal, a sound came from the door when suddenly gunshots were heard and the policeman was killed. Jamal and Kathy were shocked by all this, but relieved to be out of danger and a voice from doors telling them to refresh. Then, after that, many celestial things appear just like meteors that fall in the forest. The scene switches to a male streamer named Midnight, who was about to conduct an interview with a parallel world expert named Alan Price. In the conversation, the streamer asked Price what the purpose of doors coming to Earth was. Price, who looked strange, then said that the doors came to Earth to observe humans and absorb memories and everything that is felt by humans and bring them to a new reality. In other words, alien doors have the ability to refresh all memories and feelings that humans have. Doors were everywhere and can resemble anything, so it can be concluded that doors are like gods who control everything. After the conversation, Price told the stream, whose real name was Paul, to accept the reality he has and not hide behind his fake identity. Suddenly the streamer seemed like he lost his mind and walked around the room until finally he took off his clothes and went up the stairs. The broadcast ended and then Price greeted, "Welcome." And that's how the movie ended. This movie brings a lot of thinking about the entity and the reality we live in. It was a unique movie actually, and I hope you enjoy the video. Please kindly hit the like, subscribe and bell button for now, and see you on the next video.